Hardly Sound is brought to you by Sabrina Q. Mikan, dedicated to highlighting the life stories of musicians and artists who enrich the culture of Austin, Texas. Real Ale Brewing Company. Real Ale incorporates 100% malted grain, domestic and imported hops, and crystal clear water to create unique recipes. Find Real Ale all over Texas at your favorite bars, restaurants, and stores. Real Ale Brewing Company. Handcrafted ales from the Texas Hill Country. Kong Screenprinting. Kong Screenprinting specializes in high-quality art design, screen-printed apparel, and paper prints for bands, businesses, nonprofit organizations, schools, and sports leagues. Kong Screenprinting. Information at kongscreenprinting.com. A generous donation from Brad and Maggie Marcum. And the Hardly Sound Alliance.
I don't know how I ended up here. I don't mean I don't know how I ended up touring with the legendary lo-fi band Half Japanese while they opened for Neutral Milk Hotel, one of my favorite bands of all time. I know how that happened. Jad Fair led us. What I mean is, I am not entirely sure I remember how I actually physically got to Athens. When I say I was tired, I mean it in the hadn't slept in 48 hours kind of way. I mean it in the my vision's getting blurry kind of way. Making a TV show will occasionally do that to you. I went on this tour hoping for revelations, to see Jad in a new light, because Jad's music can be challenging, and I felt challenged. So I thought maybe if I saw him with his band and his element with an entirely eager audience, something would click. I'll spoil it for you now. It did click, but not before I cried backstage a couple of times. The first time was that night, in fact. Neutral Milk Hotel played Two-Headed Boy Part 2, and I couldn't help but shed a few tears because I have a human soul, you monster. What this tour taught me is that I was not meant for touring. It seems tailor-made for bad moods. Little sleep, bad food, and just so much driving. I mean, just way too much driving. But it reminded me of something else. Anyone who does this, and especially if they've been doing it as long as Jad, do it because they love it. They must. I don't see why else you'd tolerate it.
I guess I'm leaving.
Well, this is a song called Firecracker. This is a song that Half Japanese still plays today, and we play it at almost every show. Well, when I write lyrics, usually I'll write several lines on one sheet of paper and several ones on a couple other sheets. And then as I'm listening to the music, as the band's playing, I'll kind of jump around, choose this and that. When I wrote the song, I was working at a daycare center, and the middle of the song is like a children's jump rope song. Firecracker, firecracker, boom, boom, boom.
Firecracker, firecracker, boom, boom, boom. Firecracker, firecracker, boom, boom, boom. Boys got the muscles, teachers got the brains, girls got the sexy legs, they win the game. Muscles ain't strong, brains ain't smart, but oh, those legs, they won my heart.
And I'm real pleased with how it turned out. I mean, the main thing with Half Japanese is that we chose our own path. I mean, for me, I haven't ever tried to sound like anyone else. I've just tried to sound like myself. The artist and can do whatever they want to. You know, it's their paintbrush. The same didn't hold true for musicians, and still today. The music world, I think, is way, way more conservative than the art world. I very seldom tune the guitar, so to me it's more of a rhythm thing. You know, I just think it's my guitar. I'll do whatever I want with it. I mean, I do have skill in what I do, but it's more of a primitive thing. I mean, it's more of, you know, let's hit this.
In a lot of ways, Jad and I approach our respective crafts very differently. Here's my cable management system. And here's Jad's.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, please don't talk about me when I'm gone.
In other more significant ways, I feel an affinity with him, though. Several months before we embarked on our tour, I got to meet Jad at his home. If he had told me that this Jad was the same Jad that I would see on stage, I wouldn't have believed you.
With music, I really push myself out. So I'm more outgoing than I normally would be. But for the last 13 years or so, my main focus has been art, paper cutting. With Half Japanese, we were doing a lot of traveling in a van. Hours at a time, traveling from city to city. And I wanted to have something to do while I was traveling. But then I found that I can have a steady hand with a pair of scissors. This sounds so dangerous to be in a moving car with a pair of sharp scissors. I have an exhibition now in Tokyo, and I've got one in Oceanside, California. And I'm going to be in a group show in Vienna and one in Dublin. Yeah, there's a number of things coming up. Let's see how it turned out. So, got a monster holding a couple people. Cowboy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I would love to compare him to Clark Kent and Superman, but really that doesn't work because Clark Kent and Superman are both equally dorky. The two Jads, though, almost have different personalities.
Let's get the gingerbread man. Cowboy. Growing up in Michigan, we were influenced by Michigan bands, the Stooges and MC5 and Destroy All Monsters, also Motown, and there was so much going on in Michigan during that time period.
It's here to stay.
Boy, it's so seldom that I get nervous about music stuff. I mean, I get nervous about other kind of trash, but with music, I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Thanks for your saving.
No, I might say something nice if I go through the day of life. So try it out. You deserve it.
I'm from the Midwest like Jad, and living in Austin, sometimes I get nostalgic for real winters, white Christmases and snowmen and mittens. I find myself missing the cold.
Any way
But then I visit a place like Asheville and my nose hairs freeze as soon as I breathe in, and I realize that no, I don't miss it. I hate it. It's stupid. On top of all that, I woke up with an intense migraine that morning. It was almost as if my body was forcibly trying to get me to go back to bed. Oh, how I wish. Meanwhile, despite it all, Jad and the band seem unfazed. I didn't ever think to ask, but it's very possible that they were actually having fun. And it reminded me of something. Art is kind of hard. There are lots of misconceptions people have about being an artist. People who are contemptuous of artists think that all they do is shuffle around their house drinking whiskey, smoking things they aren't supposed to be smoking, and occasionally making some noise on their guitar. People who want to be artists think that all they do is shuffle around their house drinking whiskey, smoking things they aren't supposed to be smoking, and occasionally making some noise on their guitar. But those that actually do the work know that the hours are long. Being underpaid means you're getting paid, which means you're lucky and maybe you'll make rent this month. And don't even think about dental insurance. You just push that tooth right back in.
And now it's clear, and now is right as right can be. My eyes once closed are open wide.
You have to have fun at one point or another, or else it kind of doesn't make sense to go on.
I have a certain smile now.
And I wasn't having fun.
Past.
My default mode is to feel alienated and unwanted. And when I'm running on fumes, I don't have enough energy to convince myself that people don't hate me. So I sat backstage alone at the Mountain Oasis Festival for a few hours, while everyone else was in their dressing rooms and presumably feeling fine. If I felt unwelcome, it's not because I was actually unwelcome, it was in my own head. By the time Half Japanese took the stage, the very thought of lifting a camera up and pointing it at people and caring about composition and lighting and action seemed impossible and meaningless. Then I felt a tap on my shoulder. It is revealing of my state of mind that I immediately assumed it was someone telling me to go away. Instead, it was Catherine, a stagehand I had never met in my life, who had no reason to show me any kindness, who simply asked me, "Do you want to try the spot over here? I think you'd get a really cool angle." And so I did. Then she asked me, "Do you want to go up to the top and shoot from there?" Catherine led me up the stairs, and if I felt a huge surge of affection for her because of this simple, unwarranted act of kindness, it's because I have a human soul, you monster. If I also came to the conclusion that humanity was okay after all and not a bunch of selfish apes, well, that's because I put far too much meaning into every little thing. And don't worry, I'll be seeing a therapist after this season is over. But up there on the catwalk, I just wanted to hug her and listen to her life story and become pen pals with her. But who am I kidding? All we did was enjoy the music, side by side.
Neutral Milk Hotel invited us to do these shows with them, which is really very flattering because certainly they could ask anybody.
This all seems so run-of-the-mill to Jad. It's almost as if he's done it hundreds of times before. Imagine that.
Well, to make money off of music, touring is a big part of that. Because there's, it's just CD sales are down from what they used to be. Well, I mean, certainly there are people making good money from music, but I'm not one of them.
Even when he describes his homesickness, he seems so matter-of-fact.
The advantage of doing shows in Austin is I can go home at night. Because I do miss my wife when I'm out on tour. But it is interesting seeing different cities. With Half Japanese, I've been able to go to so many different countries and had the opportunity to see so many different things, which would be difficult to do in some other profession. But after one of the shows, someone came up to me and was telling me, he said, my three favorite guitar players, Neil Young, George Harrison, and you. And I thought that was pretty flattering. Now let me start from the beginning. Rockin' chairs got me, came by my side, fetching my gin son. I tan your hide. Can't get from this cabin. And I ain't going nowhere. I'm just sitting in my old rocking chair. Rocking chairs got me. A rocking chair's got you, father. Yeah, came by
I suppose
my side.
this is at the heart of my inability to figure Jad out.
Fed me my gin, son.
How is this man, this joyful man, the same mild-mannered guy who, back in Austin, seemed more excited about his new pool than about, well, anything else?
I ain't going nowhere. I'm just sitting in my old
Maybe I'll ask his brother what he thinks.
rocking chair. Yeah.
Like in all these years, like I've been, doing music for, 40 years or something, and never learned more than 3 chords. I always feel like, well, I can't play Bruce Springsteen's songs, but nobody can play the way me and Jad play better than us. To me, more it's like outsider art or something like that. It's just that this is the way we do it. It's hard for me to be as excited about it, and that's part of like what you need to do it, is like have that fire inside. I mean, when I was in my 20s and we were living in Maryland, we would drive up to New York and play a show, and then it would get over at 2, and then we'd pack out and we'd leave at 4, and whatever. We get back to Westminster, it's like 8:30, then I go to work at 9 o'clock. No sleep at all. In my 20s, okay, I'm not interested in doing that right now.
David is one of the founding members of Half Japanese, but only plays with them when they happen to be playing in his neighborhood.
There's like sort of an older version of Half Japanese and we do play, because it is right in my neighborhood. We do this little Shake More festival once a year. We've done 7 or 8 of those.
I would say that my philosophies on touring definitely align with his.
The joke about touring is like, like the first day, it's great, and then at the end of the tour, it's, what in do you mean, please pass the salt? Just seriously have such other things wanting my attention and stuff. And I have I have a son, I have a daughter, my wife. I like to be home. I don't, I'm retired I was a librarian for 30 years, I'm retired, so I don't have to go anywhere, and it's kind of nice to stay home.
I asked him how Jad is capable of being such a different person on stage.
I mean, back up about me and Jad, like, where we grew up, Michigan, a lot of people say that's the energy capital of the universe, back then. Like, we got the Stooges, the MC5, and the first show I ever saw was MC5. So where are you going to go from there? You either, just turn your back on music or form your own band, because there's nothing else going to top that. So you got that, like that's what we grew up with, So that's like in us, and that's how we know how to do it. People come and see us, of course you're going to jump around stuff like, sure, I'll smash my guitar. You got, like, if I see someone in the back row and they look a little bored, what's it going to take? Because I'll do it, I got a big, huge responsibility on my back, because I just took an hour of their life, I don't care, guitar doesn't mean anything. Sure, I'll smash that, But in real life, you couldn't be like that the whole time, So, of course, you got a calm side and, take it easy, be a nice guy. Because that's the other thing. Like, what's the point of being a sour, mean guy in the world, They got those already,
Even though Jad and David don't tour together anymore, I sense no regrets in either man.
This band's more about, having fun and stuff, and we've had, and I've had plenty of fun.
They seem to be living the lives they want to live, and I can't help but admire that.
This could be the night. This could be everything we ever wanted. It could be the night. I have an angel. Let me tell you about an angel. Well, I have an angel who comes to me and makes sure I'm all right. I have an angel with brown eyes. This could be the time. Well, this could be the time. This could be our time. This could be for us. This could be the night.
Look, I'll be honest. I still don't know how this Jad is the same Jad I met back in Austin.
And guess what? All my dreams are coming.
Frankly, I don't care anymore, because this Jad is joy with a capital J, some platonic ideal of joy, pure and unfiltered, and anyone with that in them is okay by me.
This could be everything I ever hoped for.
If I teared up while he performed This Could Be the Night, maybe it's because I was just so tired that anything would have made me cry. Maybe it was because my girlfriend flew in and accompanied me for the last leg of the trip. But I don't think so. It's just a great song, and Jad's a great performer.
Half as good as an angel. And that's what I have. I've got an angel.
I'm glad Jad chooses to take the stage once in a while, but at the end of it all, I began to wonder why he bothers. Why doesn't he take a path like David's?
Sweet angel.
I don't think he does it for the glory or the money. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who cares all that much for that stuff. And besides, his legacy is well cemented, and playing a few more shows won't change that. Maybe he's simply an expression junkie like Ryan in the last episode. Or maybe this is a gift from Jad to us. Maybe he just sees the joy we feel when he and Half Japanese play, and he can't help but give that to us.
And I don't think I'm mistaken one little bit if I tell you that everything is R-I-G-H-T, and that spells right. I have an angel.
It's all guesswork, and I know Jad doesn't even think about it that intensely. But if I'm guessing anyway, I'll go with my favorite theory. I believe for most of us, everything dulls with time. Love, heartache, happiness, discontent. It all floats back to the middle, given enough time. But there are people, like my girlfriend, for example, who seem to feel everything with the exact same intensity every time. Every sip of cold water is as refreshing as it ever was, and believe me, she'll tell you about it. Maybe every time Jad performs This Could Be the Night or Firecracker, he feels it with the same intensity he felt the first time he performed it. Maybe the thrill never left. I would believe that.
This could very well be.
Whatever the reasons, I'm grateful. I'm grateful he allowed us to tag along. I'm grateful I got to see this other side of him. I'm grateful I got to see mountains and giants.
Well, what do you think?
But mostly I'm grateful for one particular moment.
You'd be right.
We were standing at the side of the stage while Neutral Milk Hotel performed. If I tell you they're one of my girlfriend's favorite bands, I mean it in the scribbled lyrics and notebooks kind of way. If I tell you she never thought she'd get to see them live, I mean it in the she nearly died in a wreck a year ago kind of way. So there we were. Her on one side of me, Jad on the other. Just enjoying the music, side by side. I look over at her and she says, through her laughter and her tears, "I'm so happy right now. I'm so happy right now. I'm so happy right now."
Hardly Sound is brought to you by Sabrina Q. Mikan, dedicated to highlighting the life stories of musicians and artists who enrich the culture of Austin, Texas. Real Ale Brewing Company. Real Ale incorporates 100% malted grain, domestic and imported hops, and crystal clear water to create unique recipes. Find Real Ale all over Texas at your favorite bars, restaurants, and stores. Real Ale Brewing Company. Handcrafted ales from the Texas Hill Country. Kong Screenprinting. Kong Screenprinting specializes in high-quality art design, screen-printed apparel, and paper prints for bands, businesses, nonprofit organizations, schools, and sports leagues. Kong Screenprinting. Information at kongscreenprinting.com. A generous donation from Brad and Maggie Marcum. And the Hardly Sound Alliance.